Live longer in association with BDMS, Bangkok Dusit Medical Services, your trusted healthcare network.
How long do you want to live? It's a fascinating question without a clear-cut answer. It probably depends on how healthy you are in your old age, how sharp your mind remains, how many family and friends still surround you. These are the elements that not just define our lives, but influence their length. And as we learn more about how and why we age, we learn more about what it means to live not just longer, but better. Over the next half hour, you'll get to know Giuseppe Riva, a 47-year-old executive who travels the world for work. You'll see how he lives and what that means for his longevity. Along the way, we'll meet experts and researchers who study lifespan for a living and find out how we can all learn to live longer. It's a Wednesday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. Giuseppe Riva is getting ready for work.
This is the full version of the breakfast, because if I'm in a rush that I have something at the office, I usually take a bar and that's it.
A quick breakfast, and it's time to drive. In Atlanta, the commute is as much a part of life as anything else here.
Our family is just me and my wife. We don't have kids, so we want a place where we have a walking distance, most of the amenities that we use more frequently, that we need more frequently. And the other criteria, very important one, was to minimize the commute.
Sitting is often referred to now as the new smoking. Whether in the car, at your desk, or on a long flight, sitting is increasingly shown to be detrimental to your health and your longevity. Giuseppe's days are often filled with a combination of all three of those factors. He's the CEO at the North American headquarters for a woodworking tech company.
Every morning, the emails, messages, and calls start piling up. I have 9,000 emails. Every day is adding up and getting worse and worse.
A few weeks earlier, I met up with Giuseppe at the office. He just returned from a business trip to Europe.
What is your schedule like?
Well, first of all, there is a big difference from what I planned being my schedule, and now the day is going to evolve, or the week or the month. Overviewing the organization, I have the responsibility to secure the business, and this means a pretty erratic travel schedule, difficult to control, difficult to plan, or when you plan it, is never right.
Maybe this is a hard question to answer, but how do you organize your life then?
You're right. It's a tough question because you have to find a balance between your private life, work, and try to have a healthy style of life. I find it more psychological than physical to win that moment.
That balance he talks about is something we all struggle with, and brings us to our first tip for living longer. Studies have shown that frequent flying can be disruptive to our health in many ways, from the immune system to increased risk of heart attacks and psychological strain. All of these can impact your lifespan over time. So, as much as possible, be mindful of your diet on the road and your sleep habits. Perhaps most importantly, try to exercise in the hotel gym or even a brisk 20-minute walk that raises your heart rate. Dr. Ted Johnson knows a thing or two about longevity. Specializing in geriatrics, he's dedicated his life to those nearing the end of theirs.
We tend to look at numbers in terms of how long somebody lived.
Right.
And that becomes, in some ways, for some, the metric of success. Right. I imagine that you think about it differently. It's not just about the length of one's life.
I agree. There's a lot of people out there who have written about health span or well span, how long you can remain functional. This notion of Do I want to be 100? Well, that depends. Tell me what I'm doing at 98. And we would say that we're emphasizing function and participation and engagement, and that I don't care if you have 6 chronic diseases. I'm interested in whether or not you can go to worship services and be part of your community.
People do talk about the fact that they want to live as long, but also as full as they can. And if you look at a lot of executives nowadays, C-suite type folks, this has become almost a mantra. They have all these resources, they have healthcare, access and insurance and all that. Is there a way to characterize how they're doing with regard to their overall longevity?
One of the things I've thought a lot about in terms of working with older adults in both low resource settings and high resource settings is this notion that you can't really buy your way out of old age. So my magic wand that I'd love to wave and have something change is to slow the process of aging down. Start knocking out cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's disease, and rather than avoiding one condition just to be afflicted in 2 years by the next one.
Giuseppe's story is an interesting one when it comes to longevity. For the first half of his life, he grew up and lived in Italy, which statistically has a higher life expectancy, and is home to Sardinia, one of 5 blue zones around the world, where typically people live much longer lives than the rest of us. In Italy, he played football, walked much more than he drove, socialized with friends and family. Much of that changed when he moved to the United States nearly 20 years ago.
I remember gaining a lot of weight in a short time when I moved to US. So clearly that was the biggest change, the diet. And then of course you have a different environment. You have a society, a community that has less social interconnection compared to Italy. So that is changing your style of life.
The United States ranks 43rd globally, with an average life expectancy of 80, according to data from 2017. The top 3 countries for highest life expectancy at birth are Monaco at 89.4 years, Japan with 85.3 years, and Singapore with 85.2 years. The countries with the lowest are Chad, Guinea-Bissau, and Afghanistan, all at just over 50 years of age.
How would you rate your health now?
I consider myself healthy from a general standpoint of view, but more from a respect that I'm not sick than really being healthy. Healthy state of mind, state of the body. So in that respect, I'm from 0 to 10, I'm a 5.
5. Is it important to you?
It's very important.
Is it
it's
the
quality of life.
Is it the most important thing?
It's the most important thing. Dr. Gupta, is quality of life. How you define quality of life? That's quality of life.
It raises the question then.
Yes.
If it is the most important thing to you, why only a 5?
Discipline, commitment, power of will. I go through phases that I do well. I lose weight. I do sport regularly. And I go through phases that I'm bad.
I kind of related to Giuseppe as I was talking to him. We're about the same age. You know, I kind of feel like, again, not diagnosed with any disease. I think about my health a lot. I have kids, but what do you tell a guy like me?
I tell you to get preventive services to eliminate early causes of mortality. One of the things is that probably less than our spouses and female colleagues were less often in the doctor's office. And so it is important to go in and get these things screened and checked up.
Time for our second tip, and it has to do with heart disease. Why? It's the #1 killer in the United States. A recent study showed that reducing your risk of heart disease with 5 specific factors can add more than a decade to your lifespan. Those 5 factors are healthy diet, exercise, maintaining a healthy BMI or body mass index, not smoking, and not drinking too much.
Things that you do in your midlife do affect your health trajectory in your older life. I do think failing to attend to your health in your 30s, 40s, and 50s has some dramatic impact.
While our lifespans are very much individual to each of us, there are ways to measure a projected life expectancy. So, we're going to see what the numbers say for Giuseppe next.
A healthy, happy family is a gift. a gift that should always be cherished and protected. At BDMS, this is what we believe. Prompt treatment can save lives and take care of your health, because living well is a gift. BDMS, redefining global healthcare excellence.
I fell in love with the culture and heritage of Hanoi. It has 4 UNESCO World Heritage Awards, but what's really incredible about it is the mix of this 1,000-year-old historic town and a new modern city. There's a wealth of nostalgia in Hanoi's old quarter. You can enjoy peace at Hoang Kiem Lake and discover history at the Imperial Citadel. It's my gateway to the rest of Vietnam. Hanoi, the cradle of heritage.
A healthy, happy family is a gift. A gift that should always be cherished and protected. At BDMS, this is what we believe. Prompt treatment can save lives and take care of your health, because living well is a gift. BDMS, redefining global healthcare excellence.
Helmet. Necessary, yeah?
On a Saturday south of Atlanta, you can sometimes find Giuseppe Riva, his wife Georgia, and a group of their friends here, pulling bikes from their cars, ready to ride.
The loop is about 25 miles. Some of the strong guy will do it a couple of times. I'll try to make it once.
With busy lifestyles that involve travel, often internationally, or late evenings entertaining clients, this is one of the best times for the group to get together. And it serves 2 benefits: exercise, of course, and social interaction.
I think that our group, we share the fact that, of course, the necessity to stay in shape is a great workout. You have the possibility to stay closer to the nature.
Staying closer to nature is our third live longer tip. There's plenty of data that shows we need to spend more time outdoors and that it's good for us. A study from Harvard looked at 100,000 nurses. Those who lived in greener areas had a 12% less risk of early death compared to those who did not. There were lower rates of depression and anxiety, and of course, less sitting. Exercise is one of the factors that can impact our longevity the most and one of the elements we have the most control over, says Professor Lyle Unger. He's a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and he has spent decades studying the data about our lives.
So one of my collaborators, Dean Foster, at the time was a professor of statistics here, and he was building a life expectancy calculator. We read a lot of scientific papers, tried to figure out where there was good data and which things mattered. There's a million things people worry about. Might there be pesticides on my food? Is there radon in my house? Most of these have no measurable effect on your life expectancy. We focused on what are the 3 or 4 things that really could make a difference.
Some are more obvious ones, like weight, smoking, frequency of exercise, and alcohol consumption.
I think drinking and exercise are the 2 biggest things we understand fairly well. And if you look at going from no drinks to 1 drink a day, probably live a year longer. You go from 1 drink a day to 2 drinks a day, you're back down to baseline. You're doing 3 drinks a day, now you're probably lost a year. If you're doing all those drinks in the form of vodka on Friday night, you got several years off. So we know that a little drinking seems on the whole to be good, reduces heart disease. A lot of drinking has all sorts of bad problems, cirrhosis, cancer, car crashes. Exercise, first 20 minutes a day probably buys you 2 years life expectancy. Clearly a win. You're getting an hour a day extra life for every 20 minutes you exercise.
And then there are questions like these. How do you rate your own health? What is your education level? And what's your relationship status? That last one was perhaps the most surprising element for Professor Unger.
I would have thought going in that the biggest gains were through medicine, but it's dwarfed by the effect of having meaning in your life, having strong relationships. And it's surprising to me that something that feels so squishy as, do you feel meaning in life? Are you happy? Which for me almost feels like philosophy, has hard, measurable outcomes like extra 5 years of life.
Of course, as Professor Unger cautions, there is a wide range of uncertainty here. His biggest piece of advice is worry about the life expectancy factors you can control, like smoking and exercise, and not the ones you can't, like your genetics. In Giuseppe's case, his family health history is relatively strong.
I lost my mother for cancer. Outside of that situation, the rest of the family, yes, has a history of being healthy.
Do you worry about the sort of tangible things like heart disease, having a heart attack, or developing dementia or stroke or something?
Yes.
You worry about that? Is that part of what drives you to want to be healthier?
Yes, for sure.
You haven't seen that in your own family, though?
I haven't seen it in my family, but I have seen it in close proximity to my family.
That seems like it had an impact on you, huh?
Yes, it does.
There is quite simply no way to truly predict how long you'll live. You could do everything by the book and have a freak accident. But there are those major factors that have been proven to influence our longevity more than others. Taking those main points with Giuseppe's permission, Professor Unger plugs his numbers into the life expectancy calculator.
Okay, so let's put in Giuseppe's numbers into the calculator. He's male. That's unfortunate. We live a little bit, 1 or 2 years less long. He's white. That will gain him a couple years on average. He is a college graduate. If you could pick one thing to live longer, good educated, really good, both in the US, interesting Europe too, with universal health care. Educated people live longer. Workouts, that's the big one to change. So 1 to 2 workouts per week. Only describes himself as good health. Okay, he would get a noticeable boost if he called himself very good. I mean, self-report's a little subjective. Doesn't have diabetes, that's good. Never smoked, that's super good. Okay, and now we can hit calculate.
What's the verdict?
I want you to guess first.
We'll find out together with Giuseppe next.
A healthy, happy family is a gift. A gift that should always be cherished and protected. At BDMS, this is what we believe. Prompt treatment can save lives and take care of your health. Because living well is a gift. BDMS, redefining global healthcare excellence.
Sunday, threats and counter-threats between Trump and Iran. The word war is even flung around. But will this war of words end with real fighting? Fareed Zakaria, GPS, Sunday on CNN.
I'm Natalie Allen. This is CNN.
A healthy, happy family is a gift. A gift that should always be cherished and protected. At BDMS, this is what we believe. Prompt treatment can save lives and take care of your health. Because living well is a gift. BDMS, redefining global healthcare excellence.
Of all the things researchers know impact our longevity, one of the most important ones cannot be quantified. And that is our social life. With Giuseppe Riva's busy travel schedule, entertaining at home when they can is an important part of life for him and his wife, Georgia. Our relationships with friends, loved ones, husbands, and wives can lengthen and strengthen our lives.
Quality of relationships is key. If you're married in a good, happy relationship, probably 5 years life expectancy. This is as important as not smoking. But I think trying, rather than asking, how should I be more happy with my life? How should I be happier? Sure, happier people live longer, but chasing happiness, not productive.
That brings us to our final tip. It is true. Happy people do seem to live longer. Regions of the brain responsible for blood vessel function are also involved in happiness. Older people have been shown to be 35% less likely to die during a 5-year study if they reported feeling happy, content, and excited during a typical day. Even when researchers took factors like chronic health issues and financial security out of the equation.
Is this pretty typical for you?
Yeah, I mean, once in a while we have dinner or get together with friends.
Giuseppe and Georgia have graciously invited us to their home for an evening with friends over what looks like a wonderful meal, featuring, of course, Italian dishes.
Do you get to do this thing very often?
We do it every once in a while. We did it for New
probably
Year's
once
Eve.
every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
What does dinner typically include for you? Do you go out or stay in?
No, we don't. We don't, because of his job. He tends to be outside most of the times. When he comes back home, we usually have something. We cook something every night.
The problem with me is the consistency. I'm very inconsistent. If I'm at home and Georgia runs the agenda, I do quite well, and I have a decent routine with the friends again. The problem for me is when the agenda changes, a business trip or customers are in town, and I don't control the agenda anymore, and that's then is where the problem starts.
It's interesting, George. I think this word stress is sometimes a little bit of a hard word to define. I think it means different things to different people. But do you think you have a stressful life?
No, I don't. I don't think I have. He takes away my stress.
Is that right?
Yeah, he takes away a lot of my stress, because it's his nature to take. He has to take care of everything. We've worked together for 13 years.
Yeah.
Around 12, 13 years, and not once we took the stress from at the office into the house. Never once, and it's because of him. Because he said it from the beginning. Life is life, and work is work. That's one. I don't think there are too many people like him from that point of view.
Pretty exemplary.
Yeah. I need to learn from Giuseppe.
What do you think when you hear that?
I think it's really impressive.
The group met each other as part of the Atlanta Triathlon Club. That's where Alexandra and Rich met, and now they're married.
Just being here and hearing Georgia talk about Giuseppe and how he can leave work at work, and I mean, it's something that we can take from him, and that probably at our next dinner party we'll be like, okay, Giuseppe, give us all of your tips.
Before I visited with you at your work, did you talk much about longevity? I mean, is it a conversation that you guys have, or did you have with your friends?
No, not so much. Honestly, okay, I'm getting to an age where you start to think more what your life is bringing to you, because, I mean, how you are taking care of your family, how you are preparing certain situations in different scenarios. So more in that respect than longevity itself.
Knowing that what we do in our early years impacts our later ones is important to keep in mind. Giuseppe says he's going to think about that a lot more now. In the meantime, we're about to reveal his calculated life expectancy from those measurable factors provided to Professor Lyle Unger at UPenn. Remember, this is purely based on statistics, and there's a wide range to account for all the variables.
I'm going to tell you what it is, but I want you to guess first.
I'm sitting, so I'm okay.
You're okay. You have any idea?
78.
78. Well, it's better than that. It's better than that.
It's a good news. The shirt is on me, guys.
If you exercise 1 to 2 times a week, which I think is what you told us, that you're roughly on average exercising, life expectancy is closer to 91.
Wow.
Wow.
91. Much higher than what Giuseppe himself predicted. According to the calculator, his range is from 83 to the early 90s. Statistically, he has a 75% chance to reach the age of 83.
If you stop exercising, though, your life expectancy goes down. It goes down depending on if you go to 0, your life expectancy will drop into the 80s, maybe the high 80s, mid 80s, but into the 80s. Is that worth it to you?
Yes, it is. We have age differences. It's true too that if you keep exercising, you still beat me by 10 years, 8, 9 years, but at least we can enjoy most of the life, most of the time together. So yes, it's very important.
It seems that, and you've said this before, but it's not just about how long you live. It's the vitality. You know, you want him around, not just to be around. You want him around to be participating and to be a part of your life, right? In a meaningful way. Maybe that's the greatest sort of, when we talk about longevity,
yes.
One, you can't really talk about one without the other.
No, that's very important, of course. It's not just how many years, but how you get there. I became a joke.
How we get there. That's perhaps the most important thing to remember. With so many factors and variables we can't control, focus on the ones you can, like staying active instead of sitting, limiting your alcohol intake, and not smoking. And foster the parts of your life that are just as important as all of those. Your relationships with friends and family. At the end of the day, that's what we're living for.
Show up.
Live longer in association with BDMS, Bangkok Dusit Medical Services, your trusted healthcare network.
A healthy, happy family is a gift. A gift that should always be cherished and protected. At BDMS, this is what we believe. Prompt treatment can save lives and take care of your health. Because living well is a gift. BDMS, redefining global healthcare excellence.